your challenge is not to expect to see a unicorn the first time that you use the skills. This is not, Mike Tyson is one of the greatest boxers of all time. He's one of the greatest boxers of all time because he was a knockout king. He was waiting for that one punch to knock people out. That's not what we're about at the Black Swan Group. Floyd Mayweather, one of the best boxers of all time. How many times did you watch a highlight of Floyd Mayweather knocking someone out? It was very rare.
Does it exist?
Exactly. He would just outpoint you. His defenses were impenetrable, and he would just pepper you. He would outpoint you. So think of the Black Swan method as Floyd Mayweather. We're looking for the incremental effect of the execution of the skills. We're not looking for a knockout blow. And so I tell you that because many people come to us and say, I tried a label and it didn't work. What do you mean it didn't work? Well, he just stared at me. He didn't say anything. That means you need to keep going. That means it's worse than what you thought. It's worse than what you labeled. So that means you got to keep going. Or I labeled him and he blew up at me. Okay, it worked. Just because it wasn't the response that you wanted doesn't mean that it didn't work. Mm-hmm. When somebody yells at you during the course of a difficult conversation, again, at Black Swan, we don't get caught up in the action. What's motivating it? So why does somebody blow up at you in a difficult conversation? They're doing it for one of three reasons. A, they're trying to manipulate you. It's gotten them somewhere in the past. All I have to do is get emotional with this person and they'll back down and compromise their position. B, they think you're not listening. Why does anybody raise their voice? Because they think you don't understand, you're not listening. C, they're under tremendous pressure on their side of the table. You got to figure out which one it is. Again, what's motivating it? Not the fact that he just yelled at me. Where is that coming from? Find out. Most of us run from those conversations. We either pivot off of the topic that generated the response or we yell back.
Do you think that people have a wrong perception of people blowing up?
If you were to blow up at me during a conversation and, I wasn't Black Swan trained, I would say, she just got emotional. I said this one thing and it set her flying off the handle. She's just an emotional person. Or he blew up at me because this is the way he does business. This is how he intimidates people. Because what happens when the other side blows up at you? I don't care who you are. It happens to me. It'll happen to you. It happens to anybody on listening to this podcast. What happens when somebody yells at you, blows up at you? It makes you uncomfortable. And as a human being, when you get uncomfortable, what do you want to do more than anything else as quickly as possible? Get comfortable again. And for a certain percentage of the population, that means, what's going to return my comfort level? I'm going to pivot off of that topic. What's going to return me to my comfort level? I'm going to compromise and give in to what he's asking for. What's going to make me feel more comfortable? I'm going to yell back. And those are all reactions, right? Mm-hmm. Reactions are always emotional. I don't want you to react anymore. I just want you to respond. And your response is, remember what I said earlier in the conversation. You can't be triggered and curious at the same time. So when he opens that fire hose and hits you with it, you sit back and you take it. Unless he's a sociopath, they're not going to be able to sustain that attack for longer than 60 seconds at the outside. Mm-hmm. It's hard to fight with somebody who's not fighting back. Once it starts to subside, here's something that's going to drive you crazy. Apologize. I'm sorry. It sounds like something I just said triggered an enormous response for you. My apologies. What caused that? Now I want to get into why. Most people want to run from that portion of the conversation. I got that response. I don't want to go back there again. No, your job is you got to stay in the moment. Find out what's motivating it, because those negative emotions, just because you're ignoring them, doesn't mean they're going to go away. It means they're coming back somewhere else in the conversation. So if you want to get punched in the mouth again, ignore it and watch what happens.